Thank you. We're joined now by Congresswoman Karen Bass of California. She's a member of the Congressional Black Caucus and a Democrat on the House Budget Committee. Good evening, Congresswoman.
Good evening. It's good to be with you this evening.
Thank you so much for coming on. Have you noticed any positive movement on the jobs bill in the House?
Well, I have to tell you I haven't. And, you know, that's why I believe that everybody needs to begin to put pressure on Congress. It's not about the president putting pressure. It's not about members of Congress from the Democratic side. Frankly, we all need to get involved and pressure Speaker Boehner to put the bills through committee and to put them up for a vote.
Well, you know, Congresswoman, one of the big beefs of the president's allies has been, well, he's not out there ahead of the narrative trying to determine how the story is told. Do you think the president can avoid having the narrative of the jobs bill taken away and manipulated as it happened during the health care debate?
Well, I absolutely think he can, because what he has put before Congress is an absolute package that has had a history of bipartisan support if you look at the different sections. And I think the mayor of Cincinnati did a great job in describing them. And so we need to get busy and we need to say, put the bill up for a vote in its entirety. Don't pick and choose. I think the president going to Republican districts like he did today, having the speech before the bridge, is critical. He's out there on the front, and I think that there's work that all of us can do to participate in this process.
Well, you know, a lot of folk jumped the president's bones by saying, look, when you controlled the House and the Senate, you didn't get stuff passed. But what they didn't remember, they were blue dog Democrats and other conservative Democrats. What do you say about Democrats in Congress who aren't supporting the Jobs Act?
Well, first of all, it hasn't even come before Congress yet. But let me just talk about the last Congress. And you know that I wasn't there, Dr. Dyson. But we really need to remember the history, because a heck of a lot was done in the 111th Congress. And so you want to talk about jobs. The stimulus package was absolutely jobs. At the time I was serving as Speaker in California, and if it wasn't for the money from the stimulus, we would have had even deeper cuts in education. We would have had to lay off more firefighters. And then talk about the Affordable Care Act. You know, jobs in the healthcare industry, it's one of the fastest growing industries. How are we going to provide medical service for 30 million people if it's not jobs? So I think we really need to remember what was done in the 111th Congress, and I think a great deal got passed when Democrats were in control of both houses.
Well, your California colleague, Maxine Waters, you know, did some tough talking to the administration, saying, look, we've got to focus on African-American communities. 16.7% unemployment is unacceptable. You hosted a panel yesterday about African-Americans in the labor movement. How would the Jobs Act change the lives of middle-class workers?
Well, you know, one of the things we were talking about in the panel today is that when you attack the public sector, when you attack public employees, where do you think African Americans work? I mean, it took the civil rights movement to open up the public sector to African American workers, and we're there. And so when you're talking about laying off teachers, laying off firefighters, when you're talking about, you know, reducing postal service and eliminating Saturday service, you were talking about laying off African Americans. And so if you look at the American Jobs Act, there are specific provisions in that Jobs Act that will absolutely impact employment in African American communities. And so the job training, the summer jobs, the construction jobs. Now, once the jobs bill is passed and signed by the president, I'm going to be optimistic about that because I know we're all going to make it happen, then it's on us in our communities to demand that those jobs come to our neighborhoods.
Sure. A bit of breaking news tonight, of course. You're expected to vote again on the Boehner bill to fund the government. What changed in that bill, and do you expect it to pass?
Well, you know what? It's a really good question, because the only way it's going to pass is if the Republicans vote. So if Boehner gets his caucus together, which didn't happen yesterday, then maybe it will pass. So what I understand is different, and we're on call right now, waiting to go back for a vote. What I understand is different is they want an additional $100 million in cuts, and this is historic, and there's no precedent for it. We are talking about disaster funding for the hurricane, for the earthquake. A lot of the damage was actually done in Republican districts, and they don't want the funding to take place unless there are offset cuts, and that's never happened before. We've always had the values in our country that if there was an emergency, if there was a disaster, we took care of that. We didn't run around and look and say, what can we cut before we restore communities?
Yeah, well, we'll see if Boehner can herd those cats together of his Republican field and see if they can get anything passed.
Well, that's going to be the determining factor, because I don't think there'll be many Democratic votes.
Okay, Congresswoman. Congresswoman Karen